Hi, I hope you've had an amazing week. Welcome to the premiere of the show Unscripted with me, Grace Msalame. Here is where we share your story as openly and honestly as we can, with the purpose of shifting the culture of silence. Now today we talk about divorce, a much dreaded word, but very common in our generation. So today we have a sit down with two gentlemen who are brave enough to share their experience with us.
Meet Marcus Olang, an avid storyteller through his writing and his photography, who believes that every one of us has a story we've lived, a story that we've been conditioned to either minimize or hide. Which is why he runs Courage Stories, a platform through which people share their stories and how they continue to make bold, courageous steps in their everyday lives. Meet Amani Maranga, a managing director and founder of 360 Degrees, a communications agency in Kenya, with a background in advertising and also a TV host, MC, and motivational speaker, with a podcast he calls Living Truthfully, which led to this conversation today. Now, these two gentlemen have one thing in common, and today, Amani not only welcomes us into his home, but they both open up their hearts.
Why did I get married? Oof, that's a heavy one. I loved her. That is something that I don't ever deny. I don't ever take away from anything and everything that happened. But I loved her very deeply. And at that point in time, it was a type of love that made me afraid to lose her. And so I felt that marriage would be the right next step at that particular point in time.
I got married to the lady I was seeing, who was also the mother of my child and my firstborn daughter. I surely did not want my child to grow up not knowing her father, and so I felt I had no choice, and so I did the honorable thing, and I got married.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Like you said, divorce is, it's a reality, in this generations in the past. But what I love about why this is different, I discovered you because of the podcast, Living Truthfully.
Living Truthfully.
And indeed, guys, you're being as honest and raw as you can be, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Because for years and generations, men just don't talk, maybe about their achievements and other things, but other issues, you keep it to yourself. And I think it's time we broke the culture of silence. So thank you. And maybe you can tell us, how did you get there?
It started in 1930 when Uruguay won the first World Cup.
Stop.
My process has been a difficult one. And what surprised me was how much pain I was in, yet I was the villain. I was a catalyst that ended my marriage. And so it didn't make sense to me, because then I should move on. I should just, move on to the next thing and be happy. But that's not what was my experience. And so I went through a lot of pain. I went through depression. I was unable to work. I had to shut down my business. And all this was a function of just reeling from the sense of failure and from the sense of loss. Last year, I decided to, as part of my healing journey, I've been seeing a therapist, but as part of my healing journey, I decided to go through these self-development experiences. And in one of those experiences, I got to really face myself and own my choices. And I discovered that what I want from this process for me is freedom. And freedom is a function of having nothing to hide, And so someone said that the most dangerous man is a man who has nothing to hide.
The fact and acknowledging that you actually have nothing to hide is a very empowering feeling. And the beauty about that conversation is it reinforced that. It reinforced the fact that we were able to be in our space, very open with each other, and even at some points, I think at some points tears were shed as well on both ends. So it's just that feeling of being comfortable. And I keep saying this, I envy a lot of female friendships that I witness, because there's that sense of freedom with each other. And
For
if
us,
we-
that's where it starts, eh?
Exactly.
Any problem we have, an issue, it starts with a conversation to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that that's what you guys are doing. What does divorce look like, guys? You could each share your experience. You could break that down to us. What is that?
It's ugly, it's messy, it's personal, and even if it's for the right reasons, it's still a very painful process, and it's heart-wrenching.
Yeah. I refer to it as death, because divorce is death. It's because the fact of the matter is, regardless of how long you've been together, the kind of time you've spent, whether you have children, whether you don't, whether you have investments together, whether you don't, it doesn't matter. As long as you've made that commitment to each other, that separation process means that you have to acknowledge that there is a death of dreams, a death of hopes, a death of something that you'd mapped out both in your mind, and you've started actualizing it as well. So recognizing that all this that was here and so bright and so alive, and there was all this hope, is now just gone.
Torn apart.
At what moment did you know it was over? If
It
you're
ends,
okay with
it
sharing.
it ends in waves.
I see.
It
It's
doesn't-
not a
it do-
one-time
it's not a
thing that says
one-time
it was
thing.
this day.
No, it's not. At least not for me. There were moments when I was still in the marriage when I thought it was over, and I knew it was over. And even when I was leaving, I thought it was over then, but it wasn't, because I felt like it was over a year later, and I felt like it was over when we finally were filing divorce papers. Like, you have several times it's over.
Yes.
And when you finally get your decree from the courts, then you feel like it's over. Like, you understand?
There's a process to it.
You have several overs. So I don't know when I knew it was over, and I guess I'm still going through an over process. So, yeah.
Mine was a similar thing. There's no defined point where I'd say this is where, yes, definitively it was done. Well, there is one. However, even before then, it was a 6-month, actually a 3-month process before I decided to file, and a 6-month process before I decided to actually leave and serve the papers. So it was there were very many. It's an incredible journey. As you said, it was over 1 was October of 2015, over 2 was December of 2015, over 3 was January, over 4 was April, over was June. Then now there is a process of the court hearings themselves, where you have to again confront what you're doing and dealing with. So it's this entire extrapolated process that doesn't have a defined, it's not a nice, neat little thing.
It's not a package.
Yeah.
It's not
And you said in the podcast, truth is not neat.
It's not.
yeah.
It's not neat at
Far
all.
from it.
Yeah.
I like that you brought up, you go through the what if. Should I wait? Should I stay? And of course, I'm sure you consult, whether it's fellow men, or I know you both from church settings, whether it's a church. How did they take that, actually?
I have so many things to say
You
about
have
the
so many
church.
things to... How did
It's
your
okay.
family... How did... How did those outside the situation take this, and how did they advise you in this process?
One of the things that I've come to appreciate, and one of the things that I appreciated a lot in that entire period of time, was one, I appreciated my family, because typically, and what I had in mind, because of course, in that time, I'm talking to people, asking, not talking to them saying that I want to get a divorce, but it's, okay, so what's the process? If you've been through it, what was the reaction? What was, just getting a feel of it. And for a lot of the people that I talked to at the time, there was a feeling of rejection amongst even those that you would believe would be there.
So not friends, this is family.
This is family.
Wow.
Because we put our, I loosely call it culture. Our culture places a lot of emphasis on marriage. So if you're breaking a marriage, it's a grievous sin. And actually, one of the words that was used was, and I heard this from someone, was you're bringing shame to us as a family.
Wow.
As soon as I shared what was happening, both my mom and my dad immediately, very solidly, were, you know what? We trust you. We trust your decision-making process. We're with you. When it came to church, that's a mixed bag. Oh, that's a mixed bag. Church, the vast majority of people that I interacted with immediately pulled away.
And these are people who walked with you as a couple?
Yes.
Yourself as a friend?
Yes.
Wow.
Vast majority of them immediately just pulled away. And where for me I hold, and this I don't pretend about it, where for me I still hold a bit of anger against them is fine. It's fine to, as human nature is for us to look for a hero and a villain in the story, that's fine. But the least one could do is find out how I'm doing on a fundamentally human level.
Yes.
Am I eating? Do I have a roof over my head?
Exactly.
Do I food, shelter, clothing? Simple basics. Then beyond that, we can now discuss the morality and all of that around that. Just that simple consideration did not exist, and that's why I hold a level of anger and disappointment against the vast majority of the people that I had around me from church at that point in time. But there were people, now to be very clear, there were people, a very select few, that immediately just opened their homes and their hearts and said, come. Whatever you're going through, that doesn't matter. If you need someone to talk to, we'll be there. If you need help with this and that, we're here.
So context is very key, like you said. You can talk about the morality issue and all of that, but you need to know the story to understand where they're coming from. Both sides of the story. And I get where you're coming from in terms of when you do something that is outside or is considered taboo. I mean, I'm a single mother, and I went through that process where I lost friends, family members who were like, oh, well, guess she's one of those. But you don't know the story. It's not a blanket case for everyone when some situations happen in your life. So I need to know, how do you move above that?
I didn't move past it immediately. I actually went down a very dangerous spiral. Went into a lot of, I abused alcohol a lot. I withdrew a bit from my circles. So what helped for me was that I had been through a depressive phase before. So at some point, I recognized the sign. And so it was a morning, I had a glass, not too dissimilar from one of the ones in your kitchen over here. The previous night I had been drinking, not a good whiskey. Let's just, it wasn't a good one. It was, the ones that just burn your throat as it, yes. But I had been drinking the night before. Then when I woke up, just as I'm about to leave the house, I look at the glass and it's half full, and I just gulp it down like it's water and felt nothing. Then just as I'm unlocking my padlock, that moment of clarity where you ask yourself, wait, what did I just do? Immediately called my then gym trainer, a gentleman called Don, and told him, listen, I don't have money right now to pay you, but I need to start working out or I will die.
And on that powerful note, let's take a short break. We'll be right back as we continue unpacking the divorce conversation and get to hear more about their coping mechanisms. Keep it here. Welcome back. Today we're discussing divorce. We're trying to unpack it as best as we can. And with me is Amani and Marcus. Thank you for coming on board today. So Marcus, you're telling us about your coping mechanism. Alcohol was involved and then exercise.
Yes. When I realized that alcohol abuse is a real thing that I was quickly falling into, started working out, had an amazing trainer who was also incidentally, I think, part of my therapy as well, because he's an amazing listener as well. But then that also brought alive the need for therapy. So I went for weekly therapy sessions as well for a while, just to unpack what I was feeling. So on one end, it's the physical, raw anger, frustration that I'm processing in the workouts, and then now unpack why did all this happen
I
here.
see.
But what helped for me was at least there wasn't all that much to separate, because we don't have children in the picture, which is a whole other story. 'Cause man,
Say that again.
How did you both prepare them before you made the decision?
My daughter was 7, my son was 5. So they were pretty young. And we tried to have the conversation with them and, tell them, mommy and daddy, have some, disagreements. And, so for now, daddy will be staying somewhere else. And, we tried to have that conversation as civilly as possible. I don't know if that's a word. The kids didn't understand it.
Because they see daddy every day.
Yeah.
And now you're saying we won't see him.
And they said over and over again, come back home. And nothing broke my heart as much as that, as the kids begging you to go back home. I moved out in May, and so in that school term, they're very brilliant children. My children have their mother's brain, which is a blessing because that's what I prayed for. The teachers could tell something was wrong. And going to school and hearing how they had withdrawn, my son had just, gone into a cocoon. I mean, it broke me. Because what it's saying is that your decisions, your choices are messing up their lives. Yeah?
Did you think twice in that moment for maybe we should try and work this out?
So I was very clear that, doing it for the children is not always a good result. Unlike Marcus, I'd never been in depression. I'd never seen it around me, so I didn't know what it looked like. And so for me, I was slipping into this space without knowing it. Until one day, by this time I've almost run down my business, literally run down my business. I have 1 out of 12 employees left. And the guy by that time this was my office before I became home. And so he'd come every day. This guy was faithful. He's like, I don't care if there's a salary or not, I'm not leaving this guy by himself. So he'd come every day. And one day I told the guy, I've lost my mojo. That's what it felt like to me. I've lost my mojo, so I don't know. And then I thought, okay, I might need to talk to someone. And since we had sent our kids to a therapist,
Good job.
because we realized that they needed to process this, and we were ill-equipped, so we had sent them to a therapist. I went and saw the same therapist because I felt like she had at least some context and some history.
Yeah.
One of my pastors actually reached out to me and asked me, why are you not in church? And I'm like, but you know my story and I don't want to be in church. She said, come, sit at the corner, do nothing. Also, I didn't want to have to, I serve in church and I didn't want to have to do things and pretend that everything was okay. And she told me, come sit at the corner, don't stand if you don't want to, just be in a place you hear the right things. And I enjoyed the social space because there was people I knew. They didn't know what was going on in my world, but I was happy to just have a laugh, crack a joke, like why was Barry White black? Ha, ha, ha. Anyway. So that sort of got me. I found myself now waking up to go to church on Sunday, and it was very therapeutic for me. And I found a very accepting community, and even when people knew that I was divorced or I was going through a separation, what I got from them was not judgment. Well, there was a little judgment, but I think it's that thing of understanding. But why? What could you have done differently? And I don't blame them. My family was, I think, mostly supportive and disappointed, but for the most part, I got support from my family. And so,
I like that you brought up and mentioned judgment. There's something you said in the podcast. Men don't have the right to feel pain. So for me, for some reason, that feedback that you got broke me. Because does that mean as society, have we blamed the men when marriages fail? Is that what you feel?
Oh, yes.
I would say yes. I would actually, yeah.
No, without fear of failure.
Without Really?
Yeah.
There's no
men
equal balance.
There's no, okay, let's say your point of view does not exist.
Really?
It doesn't. And listen, 100% of the times that marriages fail, and I can say this with confidence, both parties have a part to play.
Yes.
Okay? Now, you may have
In
one
anything, if you're more than one person.
Yeah,
in
you
that
may have
agreement.
one person who is a catalyst, who is an instigator, or who starts the process of the end by something that they do that could be horribly wrong, like I did.
Are you guys willing to say what happened?
There was infidelity in my marriage, and I was the villain, like I said earlier. So I was a catalyst. But what I like about the relationship that I have now with my ex-wife is, she also owned her part, and whereas I carried the weight of it, she did carry her weight, and so now we are able to co-parent. We don't have that awkwardness. I think she's a really good human being, and
There's respect and appreciation.
Yes, and I never felt like from her, in fact, I never felt like she had a problem with me feeling pain. But when we started talking about this on the podcast, I received a lot of just scary feedback from women who were literally felt like we didn't have the right to talk about pain because we are the cause of the pain. Now, the truth is, most men don't understand the emotions that they're going through, and they don't know how to name those emotions. So you're feeling bad, but you don't know whether that bad is sad, whether that bad is angry, whether that bad is fear, what that bad is, And so often then we don't show this emotion because we don't understand it, or we don't know what to do with it.
I feel like that's also in part because we don't give space for us to process out loud. Do you get what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah. That
because you're a sissy if you process it out
exactly.
loud. Yeah.
So among men, you don't have that space.
Among not just men, anyone, you don't have space to say, I feel bad, but I don't know what bad means. How on earth do you not know what bad means? Why are you, okay, are you feeling angry? You put a name to it and then come back to it. Or once you do put a name to it, then it's, you'll be fine, you're a man.
And let me say this, Grace. We need help as men, first to name our emotions. I'm glad I've gone through processes that have helped me understand some of the emotions that I feel. But we need permission.
Permission is the word.
We need permission to feel what we feel and to remember that our feelings are legitimate. Whether you think they are warranted or not, they are legitimate.
If there's anything you wish you had done differently, is there?
No. Not for me. I believe in owning my decisions. Yes. Every single decision that I have made has either had a benefit or a lesson. Sometimes both. My decision to get married, regardless of what the motivation was my decision. my decision to, in even whether it's conflict resolution within a marriage, in every single point in time, every single decision that I made during that path was my decision. Some of them contributed to the breakdown of the marriage. My decision. To file divorce, my decision. To end it, my decision. I own every single step of it. And because I own every single step of it, I either take the lesson or I take the benefit that's come with it. So that allows me to fully go back and replay and understand this meant this caused this did this. And therefore in future, don't do, improve on, do this. So at every single point in time, I owned my decision. And that's, yes.
An informed place.
Yes.
That's powerful, Marcus.
I really like the conversation on owning your choices, because that's how, that's a first step to moving forward. I went through this process of asking myself 3 questions. I talk about this in the podcast. What are the things that I'm grateful for through this process? What are the things that I can change? Things that didn't go right that I can change? And what are the things that I cannot change? And by accepting the things that I cannot change, then I'm able to release that energy
And
focus on what I can change. So when I look back, I mean, I wish I'd made a little different decision when I was getting married. I think, I should have spent a bit more time in making that decision. I feel like I should have done the same when I was leaving as well. Maybe I could have spent a bit more time in making that decision. But now those are things I cannot change. I'm so fortunate. I hear so much drama from other people. I don't have any of that, And she's a wonderful mom, and so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my friends, for my church, and so, when I look back, I have a lot to be grateful for as well.
We're still unpacking divorce. This is a heavy conversation, so we need to take a short break. We'll be right back in a few minutes. Keep it here. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Amani and Marcus, thank you for being open and honest with us in this conversation. It's what we need. There could be someone at home who may be going through the same situation or similar, so you never know who you're helping. Marcus, do you mind sharing why you walked out of the marriage?
I don't think our marriage started off on the right foot to begin with.
Okay.
I don't think that we were on the same page. I'm trying to find the exact phrasing for it. I don't think we started off as a unit. Yes, yeah. There were very many points that we viewed in a fundamentally different way.
You're heading in different directions.
Exactly. And I feel that amongst the things that ended up being a problem in the long run was our patterns of conflict resolution. I'm the kind of person who, when something comes up and there's a problem here on the table, I like to go back, think, assess, see, okay, what are the angles, then come back and talk about it. The kind of person she was then, I don't know whether that has changed now, the kind of person she was then is, this is a thing on the table? Okay, let's dissect it now.
Right now.
Yes. Which over time tends to snowball. And that becomes the issue.
Did you ever both communicate that I need my time to let it simmer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But it was still hard.
Yes.
I see.
We even went for therapy at some point, for couples marriage therapy.
So you tried?
Yes. So at some point I was at home, at my parents' home, and I watched them having an argument.
Yeah, your parents now.
Yes. But it wasn't an argument. They had a conversation. And you can tell that there are 2 different points of view. But there is no shouting over the other. There is none of that. And it got me thinking, wait.
You had a light bulb moment.
Yes. Why must it always be so and
Almost volatile.
yes, and it actually was volatile. So having that realization was one of the catalytic points that led me to just say, this is just not a thing that's going to work.
Wow. Whereas yours is very different.
Yeah, mine is
And you have
different.
children, so I guess
we have
it
children,
would
so
be
that,
different.
That makes it, different. We have the children need both their mother and their father, and they need, and parenting needs some sort of collaboration, and so that, that changes the circumstance for us. But like I said, she's a wonderful person, and so for me, even having her as a friend was a blessing. So
I see. So that's also something you mentioned, a friend. So were you friends before?
The fact that I'm thinking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Not
usually
quite. Yeah.
you need to be marrying your friend. So speaking of marriage, do you guys do it again? Would you consider marriage a second time?
My answer now has changed again since 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was a firm no. Now, open to having a partnership with the right person.
What does that mean by a partnership?
That means, yes, we can be married, but the certificate doesn't mean much if you and I are not on the same team.
I see.
That certificate means nothing.
And yourself, Amani?
yes, no, maybe, I don't know. Can you repeat the question? You're not the okay, but you can be the boss of me. But okay, so yeah, let me drink my coffee. I'm open to marriage. I don't have anything against the institution of marriage. I think I've seen marriage work. I have family and I have friends whose marriages are working, so I've seen marriage work. I think for me what has changed is the how. There's some things that I feel I need to fundamentally do differently. The person that I am, the things that I think about, the things that I look for in my partner. And so, and like I said, there are many things to consider now.
You have children now.
I have children, so I have very many dynamics to consider before I get married. So it's not something I'm going to do soon, but I'm open to it.
Speaking of children, we all know for our children, their parents are their heroes.
Yes.
Daddy's everything, and equally so is mommy. How did that change for you after the divorce, your relationship with your children?
To be honest, I think it changed for the better.
Oh, that's good. Wow.
There's a common saying that is used when people talk about how you don't realize the value of something until you lose it. And for me, the thought of losing my children, I was not in danger of losing my children, and we were not fighting for custody, or we had happily agreed that we'd both be in the children's lives. But you still have this energy around you that,
Because they're not in your space all the time, so you still feel like...
So I think I overcompensated as a dad and did everything I could to just make them know that they're loved, that I haven't left their lives. I may not be in their physical space. I'd probe and try and understand where their mind is at, and that broke me over and over again, hearing what they're thinking. But with time, that turned. And I think they were able to, I really hope they're able to understand that, Daddy loves them, Daddy's there, he's accessible and available for them. They spend nights and weekends here. So, I mean, their lives, we have alone father and son time with my boy. We have date nights with them, both of them. So I'm involved in their lives completely. I think there's always room to do more, for sure, but,
The reason I ask this is because, when you get into a marriage, it's the two of you.
Yeah.
And you may have your issues and not want to talk to each other ever again. But once children are in the picture, as hard as it is, they should never have to pay for it.
They
Yes,
should-
it wouldn't be perfect, smooth sailing journey, but it's more
I'm not
intentional on our
fooled.
part. Yeah.
I'm not fooled that this will affect them. But I'm hoping that, by my presence and both of us just co-parenting well, we can mitigate how far they get affected by our, living apart and, getting out of the marriage. So I really just hope. I know they'll one day have the conversation, my parents, separated when I was this age and blah, blah, blah. But I hope the ending of that story is that my dad was always there for me, my mom was always there for me, and I never felt like I didn't have any of my parents. I hope that...
Oh, I had to choose.
Yeah, or I had to choose. I hope that is how that story ends.
I love that. To those at home, guys, who may be going through a similar experience, don't know what to do, feeling stuck, they're men and they will not tell anyone, and they'll carry it. What would you tell them as we wrap?
I think I'd draw it out of my own experience. Don't die alone. Don't die alone. The fact is that there are so many of us who are quietly giving up on life itself, and we oftentimes, unfortunately, give up on life well before we leave. And it's often a factor of all these different things that are happening in our lives. The one thing I do know is that in each and every man there is strength, without a doubt. In each and every human there is strength. What I would challenge us to do is that let our expression of strength not be how much we can carry alone, but how much we can share with others. Because there is a certain level of strength and courage that is needed to trust you as my fellow man. Let's have that strength, that courage to be able to, one, reach out and say, hey, Amani, I'm in the dogs, man. I don't understand what is happening. And I haven't figured it out yet. And that you also are fine with that and just sit and say, okay, if you need silence for now, we'll be in silence. If you need us to figure it out together, we'll figure it out together. But let's extend that strength to mean a strength to share as well.
Amen to that. Thank you.
I like that. It's very wise. You must own your choices. So here's the thing that I keep hearing, and since I started the podcast, I've had a lot of people come and share their stories with me about their struggles in their marriage. But what I hear is a lot of blame. I hear a lot of blame for the other person. This is what that other person is doing. Listen, you cannot change any human being. Okay, only God has the power to change people. One of my pastors once preached a sermon about marriage, and he said, work on me, pray for them. And for me, that's what I want to tell people, man. Whether you're in a difficult marriage, in a difficult relationship, or you're already out, you've already made the decision to leave, whatever it is, take responsibility for your own set of actions. Own your choices. Own your space. Don't stop blaming the other person, even if they are the catalyst. Because the only way to heal and to move forward is if you can work on the things that only you can do.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Amani, for opening up your home.
Okay.
Opening up your heart, your soul, your story, both of you. I commend you. And I hope to the men at home watching, this will be a starting point for you. Like we said, I'm going to end with this quote. Let our expression of strength not be how much we carry alone, but how much we can carry each other together. And that's what Unscripted is all about. Breaking the silence, carrying the load together for a better tomorrow for each of us. Thank you so much for watching. This is Unscripted with me, Grace, on NTV. Goodbye. No.